Welcome to Inference and Incense, where insight meets intuitions when a rational bows to the ritual, and the data always have something to say. We, two data scientists, exploring one big questions each week, taking turns surprising each other with a mystery guest and a live reading. Each week, our questions is equal parts over-analysis and random curiosity. This one starts something like this. All right, Lucy, here we are, season one finale. We talked about everything and anything from reaching enlightenment to imposter syndrome to personal failure. Do you think that you got more answer or just more questions? Or what are some of your favorite moments or biggest takeaway, Lucy?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's a little bit both. I feel I had answers to a lot of questions I've been having for a long time, but at the same time, we raise more questions, right? It's the nature. And then thinking about my favorite part, there are so many like aha moments, I would say. But still, I think I loved when we talk about letting go as a skill set. That's a huge one because it connects deeply to like all my practices too. Like sometimes I feel I dropped it already, but no, I'm still attached to my identity, say, like I'm a data scientist, I need to be insightful, things like that. I think that will just be a continuous practice for me. And then I think fundamentally, I believe it's our inner quest for knowledge and curiosity after all.
You know, I love the most out of this is that I no longer text you crazy questions over text message late at night. Like, do you believe in free will? And why and why not? And we move it to a different platform. But, I think I've always enjoyed hearing your perspective and different viewpoints and trying to see things from both sides. And I think for me, I could be very logical, so much and too much at certain times. And it's nice hearing how you talk about Chinese cosmology and Eastern philosophy.
Oh, totally. I feel like we're so similar in the sense of our daily job. We can talk to each other with similar language, and then we have that logical brain. But then we're so different in the sense of like I guess our ultimate goal and how we see the world. And then for me, it's my genuine interest to get enlightenment. So I've been studying like Eastern philosophies for years now, hoping to reach nirvana through sacred knowledge. And then you know what I'm doing every night, right? Other than
I
coding.
know you always trying to get me to go through your past life regression because you just want to study.
Yeah, it's a science that cannot be explained now. But anyways, lately I picked up the Diamond Sutra. So this is one of the most famous texts in Mahayana Buddhism. And then if you've ever read any Buddhist scriptures, everything starts with "Thus have I heard," aka "This is what I heard the Buddha teach." And I realized I'm reading this 2,500-year-old text on my MacBook, and I have a copy on my phone as well. Like I download this text in like milliseconds. There's no monastery, no training required. So there's this sacred textbook just there, accessible for anyone. Then I wonder, like, how do human beings acquire knowledge in history?
Oh my God, wait a minute. What did you say? The sutras start with thus I've heard? Why don't you just come out and say Buddha say?
That destroys entire credibility, isn't it? Because Buddha never wrote anything down, and that his teachings were all oral, spoken directly to his disciples. Everything we have from Buddha came from disciples' memories, written down like 400 years after he died. That phrase, "Thus have I heard," indeed, it's just a marker, and then it tells you it's from the credible source. And Ananda That's the person usually memorize the whole text. He's saying, I was just there, I witnessed this, and I'm transmitting what was transmitted to me directly.
So it's like people said in bad journalism, really.
No.
Well, I mean, obviously, Buddha is not just any person, not any people, obviously, but
Exactly. It has to be from authority, right? But here's what fascinated me because Buddha lived in a world where writing exists, right? And that like Brahmin script was already there in India. And he could have written his teachings down, but he didn't. Like, why?
are you asking me?
Yeah, take a guess.
Well, I guess that if I think about ancient culture and how spiritual awakening always require initiations, then oral transmission forced to have a different kind of attention, right? Like you have to memorize these teaching perfectly and you have to really internalize the knowledge before you can pass it on to another person. So lesser of parroting the information, but you really have to be able to elaborate on the information. And again, I don't think anyone can just download the scripture instantly and read it off of a MacBook. You have to be a part of a tribe, of a religion, of a cult, right? In order to even get to listen to these things. And being initiated into the ritual is part of the process.
That's what we call as lineage, right? You have to be initiated. You have to be like having a teacher to teach you exactly. And then one of the biggest reasons for like this oral tradition is also because if you've written something, it's easier to fabricate something with your own interpretations. And then they want to preserve the original meaning of that scripts to be recited exactly. And I learned like mantras, which is the like sacred chanting basically, and that you have to memorize each word. So imagine what's a good example? Uh,
Well, there's a lot of things. Every time that I'm having a sickness, a flu, or like a stomach ache, you would text me, say these chants. I'm like, what? How, how does it even work? I'm going to take a Tylenol.
exactly. But anyways, if we're like taking example of thus have I heard, then we're literally reciting thus have I heard, like literally words by words, and also like reverse order as well. But you're not allowed to change anything. So that's part of the sacred lineage. And also, more than that, the Vedic tradition before Buddha refused to write for thousands of years. They believed that sound carried truth, not just words. The vibration, the rhythm, like writing takes it away.
A key thing within all of these ancient teaching is that the scarcity of these information is part of the system, right? Like if you really want to learn, you have to find somebody of the information to begin with. You have to somehow become a part of that group, spend years training to become a disciple, getting higher rank enough to even come close to the knowledge. So, in a different way of saying, the knowledge was there, but your access is highly, highly restricted.
Oh, for sure. That's why, like, it requires a relationship or what we call lineage. And in a lot of traditions, you have to serve your guru, the master,
Yeah.
for like 10 years, maybe getting just one word of wisdom. You couldn't just like Google what is enlightenment as of what you would do today.
And I think it's not a limitation now that I'm hearing about it. It's more like a feature, lesser of a bug in the system. Because what it sounds to me that the human and these ancient religion texts has always made roughly the same number of observations about our reality. You know, the ancient sages watched the sky, they tracked animal behavior, they noticed which plants healed and which killed. Tons of information's out there, has always been out there. But the question was always, do you get to explain it? And who has the authority to explain it?
Right. And like from our ancestors' perspective, it has to be from God, right? That's why we have in the Buddhist scriptures, that's what I heard. And also in Vedic, it's called Shruti, that which is heard. Because Like our ancestors, the human beings, they actually don't believe we can create something. Everything is created by the one, the Lord. Thus, we can only receive knowledge from the sacred, the one. And then only those chosen by the gods can access it. And thus the gurus and then the rishis. And you cannot democratize divine transmission. It was very hierarchical.
It's kind of like gatekeeping, right? And
Exactly.
I think gatekeeping has always intensified even in the next period of learning Christianity, Judaism, and nowadays information is external, is more so carved in stone, written on papyrus, preserved in scroll, available on a website. It's no longer require you to have a teacher, a guru of sort. And suddenly all you need to do is the ability to read, literacy.
Yeah, but then the literacy becomes a new lineage, and then we have like new gatekeepers, like those Egyptian priests and Greek academies, and then like Christianity, same thing, right? Like we have new gatekeepers, and then if you cannot read, the information might as well not exist. Same knowledge, but new wall.
Go back a little bit. I think you were saying how Buddhist tradition is that they believe the sound carry truth and writing down flattens the truth. Isn't the whole point is sounds carry vibrations and energy? So wouldn't it all get lost in writing then?
Yeah, I think it has double sides. It might seem like that we're losing the vibration, but then because it's like receiving sheet music versus hearing someone play the song. So it's different. But the reality is, writing popularizes the knowledge. So in modern days, you no longer need initiation or years to gather secrets. You now just need access and ability to read. That's a huge advancement for human beings.
I guess, yeah. So I guess the lineage structure just codified differently. Medieval clergy could read Latin, the peasant couldn't. So the information was always there in monastery library, but your access is highly restricted because it's require you to be part of that institution.
Oh, totally. So it's like we got new gatekeepers, but just in disguise, they're wearing different costumes, right? Yeah, until Francis Bacon said we're not doing this anymore, because then we enter scientific revolution. So he insisted we need to test things out ourselves with empirical evidence and repeatable experiments. That changes the whole world.
I love experimentations. I mean, data science in a nutshell. You know, I live for it.
Yeah, however, like science is incredible at explaining mechanics, like how things work, but it has no framework for meaning. I'll give you one example because when I got into like lucid dreaming, I read so many books about how REM sleep works and how to use the reality check to trigger awareness. Like super useful because you need to have theory to even do this, but it doesn't really take you there. But lucky for me, I like started lucid dreaming because I believe in it. But one night I met my grandmother who died many years ago, and she was telling me at a dream the name of the birth village in China, a name I'd never heard. So I called my mother the second morning. She confirmed it, saying my grandmother never mentioned it around me. But yes, that's where she was born.
Well, you know, multiple explanations around it. One, you probably heard it as a child. You forgot it. Your now subconscious retrieve it during your dreams because you recall for these informations. Two, you confabulated a village name that happens matching your grandma. Not zero probability, but some, right? And then option three, there's some mechanisms in your consciousness that maybe we don't understand yet. I guess some cognitive dreaming with some weird literature, but no framework in neuroscience to explain it though.
I mean, you might just even argue that it runs my DNA, right? Because me and my grandma share similar chains of DNA. Well, that might be get passed. I mean, but if you think about it, for me, the experience is my grandmother visited me.
Yeah. I think yeah, like I think some of these things I don't think science and all of the dream research has the ability to explain everything yet. And I think that's still, but I do agree. Science can explain how your dream probably work in terms of, your neurochemistry change during your sleep, how your memory cleanse and reconsolidate itself and recognize patterns that you weren't recognizing during your wake time. So it may not have the ability to touch the meaning of what you were dreaming about, but I think that's where things get interesting because if you recall how neural network, machine learnings, and deep learning and AI models are all black box, right? Just like our dreams. We trained the model with massive sets of data features, and then we get a single prediction. But we can't really explain how the predictions was getting there. Um, and I think through the history, we all attempt to analyze our patterns, past history and data, and trying to predict the future. Maybe so more efficient in these days with AI, right?
Exactly. That's a good call, actually, because I think knowledge at the end of the day is patterns, right? Because if you see things once, you wouldn't call it knowledge. It might be one observation, one data points. But if you observe it like 10,000 times, like frequentists do, then it becomes knowledge. And that's no different from old times versus today. We're all trying to be more efficient to learn patterns and convert that as knowledge. Oh, I got a great idea. Maybe we can look at a side by side, like prophecy versus AI.
What? How?
Yeah, I want to introduce you to one of the divination systems I use called Bagua. I mean, you benefit from it. There's some
Faithful?
reading.
What?
Bagua, come on, Jen. I read plates for you. That's the traditional like technology we use.
I know, but usually when you read plates for me, I just let you kind of talk for a minute and then I wait for the prediction itself. I don't listen to how the machine works behind the prediction.
All right, now you know the official name. It's called Bagua. And I use it often to guide spiritual practices and also my decisions. And
Your
then,
decision.
yeah, I make decisions here and there, and I integrate my divination like skill sets.
All right.
Yeah, so Bagua literally means 8 hexagrams. It's created by Wen Wang, a king 4,000 years ago. And impressively, he was imprisoned for 7 years, awaiting execution. He had nothing to do but time to observe patterns. So the I Ching, or the Book of Changes, became the foundation for every major decision in ancient China, from when to plant crops to when to go to war.
What? Every major decision, and it's wild that he created or invented this during imprisonment. You mean wartime major decision merits, but you mean every single decision has to go through this system?
Yeah, all the major ones, especially you have access to it. The emperors use it quite a bit. And then essentially, if you think about it, it's the same thing machine learning does, right? It's just different forms.
No, this is superstition.
No,
Stop.
no, no. Have you seen that Netflix show, The Three Body
Of
Problem?
course, of
There,
course.
there's this incredible scene where they simulate a human computer. Do you
Yep,
remember the
yep,
episode?
yep. The millions human abacus, and they hold some like black and white flags, right?
Yeah. So in the show, it's portrayed as VR game, but that scene is actually based on Bagua system. So it starts with yin and yang. Most people are familiar with that, right?
Yeah.
So yin and yang, their fundamental duality, dark and light, feminine and masculine. So they have contrast, right? White and black. And in the Bagua, yin is shown as a broken line and yang is a solid line. So it's symbolic. And now,
Oh, that's interesting. I have a bakwa mirror, I think, in front of my door. I did remember now. Yeah, there is like a dash and a solid line.
exactly. So after this episode, you'll be able to read it, I'm hoping. And then not in Chinese, but even just from the symbols, because they actually resemble the primordial elements. So we have two kinds of lines, right? The broken line and a solid line. If you take three of these lines and stack them, for math lovers like us, it's 2 to the power of 3. So you got 8
Hey,
possible combinations.
sure.
So they represent 8 forces of nature: heaven, earth, thunder, water, mountain, wind, fire, and lake. Again, these elements are our ancestor thinks what composes our world. And then they can create any other form. And
Thunder surprised me.
why?
It's such a rare event.
I guess it's not rare in China. That's what we observed.
All right. So I'm assuming they all have its own meaning.
Right, not just meaning, they have their own energy. And then, I mean, it resembles all events and all everything in the world.
All
And
event.
then,
Wait, all event literally mean all events.
yes. And then
Okay.
here's a clever part. So if you take any of these two basic forms and combine them, stacking one on top of each other, that gives you 6 lines total, which is called a hexagon. So
Right.
if you have that Bhagwan mirror, go look at it. That's exactly what it is. And 8 times 8 equals 64 possible hexagrams. So it's like you start with the most fundamental, yin and yang, then build up to 8 forces of nature, then you're creating a symbolic language for describing every possible pattern of transformation in your life.
But isn't that just 6-bit binary system? Two states, broken, unbroken, arranged in 6 position. So 2 to the power of 6, 64 possible combinations then?
You're very fast, Jen. I love that. But how is it so different than the binary system in computer we use today? It only has 0 and 1.
Mm,
It's described the entire world.
mm.
And then it's actually no different. And fun fact here, the mathematician like Leibniz, who invented binary arithmetic back in the 1670s, but later he was actually shown by a Jesuit missionary the I Ching diagrams from China, the one we just talked about it. And then he realized like right away, they're exactly same patterns.
I see where you're driving. It's definitely mind blowing, but kind of still of a random thing, right? Because computer science isn't just based on 6-bit binary system. Yes, I see your point around these mathematicians and the I Ching and the Bagua, but I still think it's a random coincidence.
But the basics is always like that, right? It's very limited. And then it's the most simple formula can evolve as millions of applications. I think that's how we think about a system. And also, like in our traditions, we believe that if you're genuine and if you are like really curious about things you're asking for, you actually form that synchronicity with the upper dimensions or higher conscious. So it's really just a tool you're trying to use, like as what you're using Bagua. It's just medium. You get clarity, you get answer by simulating the time and space at the time, and then you answer questions kind of.
But then you're saying that it tells you the future, so every single decisions that you make in life has to be consulted by the system.
Oh, not always, only when you're not certain, right? And also, I don't think it tells you the future directly. Otherwise, what's the point of living that I can draw a bagua for everyone and then we're all set, right? I think it more represents the present because each hexagram describes a situation, a dynamic. And then here's the thing, these patterns are based on like thousands of years of observations on human behavior, like the cycles and social dynamics.
Meaning they actually collect them like a real database.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly what it is, actually. It's a pre digital knowledge management system. And then we actually had documentation on that. And then the Zhou dynasty was collecting data on like decision making outcomes and encoding them into symbolic patterns. That's how the entire I Ching come from. And then emperors took this so seriously. And again, if you're emperor, you have your strategist like very well versed into like Bagua system, so they know how to properly interpret all the results. And we have like historical records from 左传, which is a famous like scripts to record all the history events. They documented over 20 successful divinations for royal families, like across 2 centuries. And these were not like just superstitious peasants consulting for a few like fortune tellers. These are generals making battle decisions, rules, choosing like successors, very high stakes stuff.
Okay, I hear you, but 20 successful divinations across 200 years? Come on, successful. By what standard?
A
Isn't
lot.
isn't isn't the winner write history in books? There's confirmation bias here, Lucy.
True, true, true. But how many like major milestones do we have in human history? If you use divination to support that, it's a win, I call it. And again, to a point, I don't think they just use divination alone, because again, these are highly educated and strategic people. They're using like also in like military intelligence, economic analysis. I mean, they're smart people. They're more using the divination system as a tool to like help them to get buy-ins maybe or push through certain things, but as a supportive, not a lone technology.
Like a support system. So why say mystical? Why package it in that way? Why not just say this is our decision support tool based on pattern recognitions?
Because 3,000 years ago they didn't have our vocabulary, right? Because if you remember, like science were called alchemy back then. We just don't have that word. And then before science finds out everything about I guess, reality or how things work, we use mystics as a disguise to describe these things. And again, they're so smart, observe the phenomenon, and they know something was happening. They were just named it or explained it differently in a different system.
All right. So I guess the learning is that we shouldn't be dismissing these ancient systems as superstitions or inferior because we may be throwing out very effective tools. This makes me think about AI and how it makes decisions. I mean, we feed these algorithms massive amount of data. It searches for patterns across anything and everything, right? Predicts things that human can't even see yet in medical and research study. So I guess from your story and perspective, the I Ching was doing the same thing with human observation instead of machine learning.
Yeah, again, look at the three body problem. That's a human computer, right? Without the AI, it was slower than individual calculation, but it's actually very accurate for complex problems because it eliminated individual errors.
But if you think about it, in the Three Body Problem TV show, the human advocates actually failed, making the wrong prophecy, therefore ending civilization 137, right? So I see your point. I think that these ancient divination systems have definitely perfected a certain way of predicting the futures and explaining phenomenons and natural disaster and major wartime decision. But still, yeah, I think the takeaway is that there is no one prediction system that would last for all time, right? And I think that's the whole point around three body problem is that you can only predict the chaos versus the stable. You cannot predict every single next decisions. Hence, the I Ching or any specific machine learning model will fail over time and need to be recalibrated and needs to readjust their target of prediction. Yeah, and I think going back, that's how neural networks work, right? Distributed processing, reducing error through statistical weights.
Yeah, so Bagua, the Chinese 1,000-year-old neural network, human version.
Okay, all right. And I'm not saying I'm gonna start throwing coin toss before every meeting, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you should do it secretly if you really want to do it.
Shuffling my tarot deck, pulling a card.
Yeah. All right. So back to the science validating the old traditions. I think the burden of proof might be on us to explain why it works, not on them to prove it's scientific.
Well, they can't. They dead. So they can prove it. And I think I'm not convinced on the coins, the cards, the tea leaves, whatever have all of the prediction power, but I can see the benefits of joining the left and the right brain.
I mean, they're that, but the knowledge lives, right? So, and also ultimately, we're the ones the holding coins or the ones making decisions. Like whatever help you to access it.
Well, I think it's time, Lucy. That brings us to the end of our season one. I guess after everything that we discussed in this entire season, exploring imposter syndrome, intuition, logic, mystic, and decision making, Lucy, one last thing that I want to ask before we close out. Do you feel that you are better at making decision now?
Absolutely. I feel I'm more hopeful than ever with all the new integrated frameworks. Left brain meets right. And then I guess I'll just give some easy blessings for everyone. May your decisions be clear, your intuition be sharp, and your algorithms be well trained. Namaste.
All right. And with my healthy dose again of scientific skepticism, until season two, everyone,